Hey everyone, Nick here again. Hope everyone's doing good out there today. There's been a lot of talk on the conservative propaganda about these baby formula shortages, and people have all these different weird recipes with like wheat germ oil and like all this kind of weird stuff. And pretty much, I have a question for everyone today. You know, what did our people do before there was like powdered goat milk and like all this stuff that you see in modern recipes for baby formula and like baby formula in general, right? And that kind of leads us to, coincidentally and interestingly, where kissing came from. Does anybody know? Can anyone answer? Where does kissing come from? Right? Humans kiss each other all the time, their kids and stuff. And if you see a baby and you put your lips up to their face, they will put their lips up to yours, and then they'll kind of open like that, you know, just like a baby bird kind of thing. And so kissing in that respect pretty much came from how we feed our children, or how we're supposed to feed our children when they're very, very young. So you can look this up. The human infants, their small intestine is super, super long, even longer than an adult. And being a human, our small intestine is almost 7 times longer than a chimpanzee or a bonobo or other great apes that we have on record. And so that indicates in general that we absorb all of our nutrients very quickly, kind of like a canine, like a wolf or a cat, like a lion, meat eater, predator, which makes a lot of sense given our historical anthropology of hunter-gatherers. And so humans, we don't have like a fermentation chamber. If you look this up, human intestinal length comparison with primates, something like that, you'll see the primates, the great apes, they have this like very pronounced, very defined fermentation chamber in between the small intestine, the small intestine and the large intestine, where they will ferment these leafy greens and sedges and stuff like that to gain the nutrients through fermentation, similar to how we access nutrients through fermentation by making vinegars and fermenting, you know, wild mustard and stuff like that. And so humans, when you look at that comparison of the intestinal length between great apes, humans have lost that fermentation chamber. And so and at the same time as we've been losing that fermentation chamber, our small intestine has grown to almost 7 times the size of regular small intestines in the great apes. And so that indicates to us pretty much that we have been moving away from a plant-based diet towards a animal protein and fats-based diet, which makes a lot of sense because of our brain takes most of the calories that we're consuming on a daily basis to run our giant brain. And so going back to the kissing, when we put our face up against or up to a child, they, assuming they haven't been neurologically damaged through vaccines or Western medical intervention, they will make eye contact with us, and then they will put their head up like this and then open their mouth just like a baby bird. So before we had formulas and all of this idea like formula stuff for babies, we used to pretty much feed them what we eat. And because their small intestine is even longer than an adult, it shrinks as they grow. Because of that, their digestive system is really, really good at acquiring nutrients because they're babies and they want to live, right? They have a very strong will to live. In Ayurveda, they call that ojas. And so before we had formula, let's look at some of the other African tribes, ancient African tribes like the Hunters, the Hadza tribe of Africa, and what they will often give the children, because they don't have access to Safeway or any kind of this Western medical mindset, they will do rendered zebra fat different baboon meats and rendered fats like that, egg yolks, and so pretty much high protein, high fat, animal-based nutrients, because that is exactly what the small intestine, being super long in the human infant, that's what the small intestine is accommodating. That's why it's that way. And a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion around why that is, but that's pretty much the answer. The traditional tribes have already taught us that feeding the child, of course, their brain is developing. The brain is composed of mostly fat, and there's extreme brain growth and neurological development in small babies and newborns, and so they require enormous amounts of fat to grow that large brain. And so we're in the West now, so we don't have access to zebras or baboon meat, but pretty much a high-fat animal-based diet is going to be what's best for the child, no matter the age. And because of their extremely long small intestine, they will be able to derive nutrients in the event that the mother cannot produce milk. And that is where the kissing originates, because when we put our mouth up against the babies, they open their mouth because they're looking for food. And so what you can use instead of all this weird powdered, processed types of foods, we want whole foods. And so you could use, like, for instance, all natural, beyond organic, pasture-raised pork, bacon, rendered fat. You could use egg yolks, like a half-boiled egg, soft-boiled egg or something like that, or over-medium egg. And you can use different types of, like, beef tallow and beef fat or duck fat. You can chop up liver really finely and mix it with an egg yolk. The babies will really like that. And then in an emergency where if a mother is not able to produce milk, you can physically chew up the food and then put it in their mouth. That's where the kissing comes from, just like the baby bird. And so the babies are made to survive. And so if you don't have quote-unquote formula, or these weird formula recipes that utilize powdered milks and like all this weird stuff, as long as you're eating a healthy diet of beyond organic animal-based fats and proteins, pretty much any time that you eat, the baby can also eat. And so yeah, just make sure to chew it up, because they don't have any teeth. And then once you chew it up, you put your face to theirs, they open their mouth, you put it in there with your mouth. That's where kissing comes from. Baby birds, stuff like that. The natural world has been doing this for 1 million years. Yeah, and I would recommend not using any kind of this weird recipes with these processed ingredients, or even the formulas that you can even get on the shelf. I mean, in the propaganda, they're talking about, there's like this shelf shortage of baby formula. There's no baby formula on the shelves, but you don't really want that stuff. That stuff is not good for the children. And especially if you look closely, sometimes they'll be like 40% fatty proteins, like soy derived, usually like that, which is estrogenic, which messes with their delicate hormonal system at the time of critical development. And so they will have all this other stuff in there too. It's like if it's 50% fat, right, or 50% protein, then what's the other 50%? Well, that's going to be carbs, because on the TV they tell you, oh, you need your carbs. But if you give a child carbs, you break them out of ketosis. They come into this world in ketosis with a longer small intestine. So that tells us, pretty much from a biological standpoint, what their nutritional requirements are. And then when you have these Western doctors giving these mothers who can't produce milk for various reasons, mostly to do with stress, they give the babies these 50% fatty protein formulas, which immediately arrest ketosis and send the child into glycolysis. And because it's 50-50, or they're around there, you will automatically engage glycolysis, which will retard the mental development, because the ketosis using the ketones is really good for the neurological development, and that's why fats are so good, and that's why the child's small intestine is even longer than a human adult's, and that's why human adults is longer than the great apes. So you have all of this kind of compounding biological evolutionary reasons why we should be giving the child this or that. So yeah, if anyone's interested, shoot me a message. I could give you a little more information, and hope everyone's doing well out there. See ya.